Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Today's story is corporate betrayal at its absolute worst. Because imagine spending months building a project from scratch, late nights, stress, zero sleep, only for your own boss to stand in front of executives and pretend he created everything himself. That is exactly what happened here. But trust me, the ending is beautiful because this man forgot one tiny detail. Everything inside corporate offices leaves receipts. So our narrator is a 29-year-old software analyst named Jason. Jason lived in Chicago, tiny apartment, massive student loan, speaking entirely in fake motivational quotes. You know the type. Now Jason actually liked his work, not because the company cared about employees. Absolutely not. But because he genuinely enjoyed solving problems. And that matters for the story, because around January, North Star started struggling badly with internal reporting systems. Executives hated how slow everything NG moved. Reports took days, sometimes weeks. Departments blamed each other constantly. Meetings became pure chaos. And eventually, upper management announced a new initiative. Whoever designed a better internal analytics system would probably earn a promotion. That caught everybody's attention instantly, especially Jason's boss, a 43-year-old department manager named Richard. Now, Richard was one of those managers who contributed absolutely nothing while somehow taking credit for everything. Every office has one. He scheduled endless meetings, used words like synergy constantly, and always positioned himself near successful projects right before completion. Jason said people secretly called him corporate parasite. Honestly, fair nickname. At first, Richard barely cared about the analytics project. He assumed it would fail like every previous attempt, but Jason became obsessed with solving it. For nearly 4 months, he worked constantly, extra hours, weekend testing, database rebuilding, automation coding, entire nights surviving on vending machine snacks and caffeine. And slowly, unbelievably, the system started working. Not just working either. Ardoti transformed everything. Tasks that once required 6 hours suddenly took 15 minutes. Executives loved early demos immediately. Co-workers started relying on Jason constantly. Even senior staff praised the project openly. And that is exactly when Richard suddenly became interested. Funny how that works. At first, Richard acted supportive. Too supportive. He started requesting copies of Jason's presentations for leadership review. Then he asked Jason to forward all project documentation directly to him. Claimed upper management preferred communication through department heads. Again, reasonable enough sounding. That is how corporate thieves operate. Nothing looked suspicious immediately. Then Richard began inserting himself into meetings, interrupting Jason constantly, rephrasing Jason's ideas using slightly fancier buzzwords. And every single time executives praised the project, Richard somehow answered first. Jason noticed it immediately, but he still was not prepared for what Richard would do next, because during the company's biggest quarterly meeting, Jason walked into the conference room expecting recognition. Instead, he watched his boss steal everything publicly. The quarterly leadership meeting was a huge deal inside North Star. Not normal office huge either, career-changing huge. Department heads, senior executives. Even the regional vice president attended remotely through video call. Jason spent days preparing for it. Charts, performance metrics, system demos, everything polished perfectly. And honestly, he felt proud. For the first time in years, Jason genuinely believed his hard work might finally pay off. That morning, he arrived early carrying his laptop and presentation notes. Richard was already inside the conference room smiling weirdly, too relaxed. Jason remembers noticing that immediately because Richard usually panicked before presentations. But today, calm. You ready? Richard asked casually. Jason nodded. Absolutely. Richard smiled wider. Good, just follow my lead in there. That sentence felt strange. But before Jason could ask questions, executives started entering the room. The meeting began quickly. Sales updates first, then budget discussions, typical corporate suffering. Finally, the vice president spoke through the conference screen. All right, let's discuss the analytics optimization project. Jason sat forward immediately, heart pounding. This was it, months of work leading here. Then Richard stood up, by himself. Jason frowned instantly. Richard connected his laptop to the projector calmly. Not Jason's laptop, his own. And suddenly Jason felt something cold crawl through his stomach. The first slide appeared, Jason's system architecture, his formatting, his exact workflow designs. Everything except one detail. Richard's name covered the title page. Jason actually froze. Completely froze. Because for a few seconds, his brain genuinely could not process what was happening. Then Richard started speaking confidently. As many of you know, I've spent the last several months redesigning our reporting infrastructure. I have spent months, Jason said. His ears started ringing instantly. The room blurred slightly. Meanwhile, Richard continued presenting Jason's entire project like he personally built it. Every automation script, every optimization strategy, every performance improvement, all stolen publicly in real time. And the worst part? Executives loved it. People started nodding immediately, taking notes, praising Richard's leadership. Jason sat there stunned while his own boss accepted compliments for work Jason barely slept creating. Then came the moment that truly broke him. The vice president smiled through the video screen. This is promotion level work, Richard. Promotion level? Jason said. His hands started shaking underneath the conference table. Because deep down, he understood exactly what was happening. Richard never planned sharing credit, not partially, not eventually. This entire presentation was designed to erase Jason completely. Then one executive finally looked toward Jason casually. Jason, I heard you assisted with implementation. Assisted. That word hit like a truck, because suddenly months of sacrifice got reduced to assistant level support work. Meanwhile, Richard answered before Jason even could. Yes, Jason helped with some technical execution. Some technical execution. Unbelievable. Absolute corporate theft happening live in front of executives. And honestly, Jason almost stayed silent. Almost. But then, Richard made one final mistake. A huge mistake. Because while Jing confidently about his system, Richard accidentally described a feature incorrectly. And only the actual creator would catch it immediately. Richard clicked confidently to the next slide. Smug smile. Relaxed posture. Full corporate actor mode. Then he started explaining the automated escalation system, except he explained it wrong. Very wrong, Jason noticed instantly, because the feature Richard described literally did not exist, not even close. Richard claimed the system automatically prioritized claims using regional behavioral mapping. That sounded impressive, very executive friendly. Only problem? Jason never built that function. The actual system used timestamp-based predictive sorting connected through back-end reporting triggers. Completely different process. And suddenly, Jason realized something important. Richard memorized presentation slides, not the actual infrastructure, because he did not build it. Jason later admitted this was the exact moment his shock transformed into anger. Cold anger, the kind that sharpens your thinking instantly. Richard kept talking confidently, using buzzwords nonstop. Executives nodded along pretending they understood. Stood technical details. Classic corporate meeting behavior, honestly. Then the vice president asked a question, a detailed one, about system integration scaling, and Richard completely panicked, not visibly at first, but Jason noticed immediately. Richard's eyes flicked toward him for half a second. Tiny moment, huge meaning. Because suddenly the man stealing credit needed help from the actual creator. Richard started rambling, long, confusing sentences, nothing specific. Jason watched executives slowly grow confused. Then finally, one senior director interrupted politely. Can Jason explain the technical side more directly? Silence. Actual silence. Richard hesitated, and right there, Jason saw fear for the first time. But Richard forced a laugh quickly. Of course, Jason handled some back-end implementation. Again with implementation. Jason stood slowly, heart racing. Honestly, he had two choices right there. Stay quiet and survive politically, or speak carefully and risk everything. Because exposing powerful managers inside corporate environments can backfire badly. Really badly. Jason connected his laptop calmly, then opened the live system dashboard. And within 30 seconds, executives understood something felt off. Because Jason knew every detail instantly, every process, every workflow, every optimization structure. No hesitation, no vague language, just direct technical mastery. Meanwhile, Richard stood beside the projector, looking increasingly nervous. Then, Jason accidentally delivered the killing blow without even planning it. One executive asked when a specific automation feature was developed. Jason answered automatically. Oh, I built that during the March outage weekend. After Richard left early Friday, the room went quiet again. Richard's face changed immediately because now timeline problems appeared publicly. The vice president frowned through the screen. Wait, built? Jason froze internally. Oops, Richard interrupted instantly. What Jason means is our team developed it collaboratively. Collaboratively. Sure. Jason nodded slowly outwardly, but inside, everything clicked. Richard fully intended rewriting history permanently. And honestly, Jason probably would have lost right there too, because corporate environments protect managers constantly, except for one beautiful detail. L. Jason had obsessive work habits, meaning he documented everything automatically, every email, every draft, every timestamp, every code revision. And after that meeting ended awkwardly, Jason quietly sent one email that changed Richard's life forever. An email directly to HR with attachments. Jason almost talked himself out of sending the email. That is the truth nobody admits about corporate retaliation. You become terrified instantly because managers hold power over schedules, promotions, recommendations, basically your entire financial survival. And Richard knew people higher up. That mattered. So after the meeting, Jason sat alone in his car gripping his phone for nearly 20 minutes, sweating, overthinking everything. Maybe he misunderstood. Maybe executives already knew. Maybe speaking up would destroy his career permanently. That is how manipulation works in workplaces. People convince themselves staying quiet feels safer. But then Jason remembered something. Richard looked scared during the presentation. Actually scared. Meaning Richard knew he crossed a line too far. So Jason opened his laptop again inside the parking garage and started gathering everything carefully. Email chains, early prototypes, project drafts, timestamp system logs, even meeting notes. And honestly, the evidence looked overwhelming immediately. Months of work traced directly back to Jason's company account. Richard barely appeared in technical development at all, mostly approval messages and vague management comments. But Jason included one specific attachment that absolutely buried Richard: a screen recording. See, Jason had a weird productivity habit. Whenever testing complex systems remotely, he recorded walkthrough videos for himself. That way, he could review bugs later without repeating workflows manually. Smart habit. And one of those recordings captured something incredible accidentally. Richard asking Jason privately how the system worked, step by step, weeks before the executive meeting, which meant Richard clearly did not build it. Because why would the creator need beginner-level explanations? Jason attached the video immediately, then wrote the calmest email imaginable. No emotional ranting, no insults, just facts, professional facts. Honestly, that part matters a lot because angry emails get ignored. Fast. Structured evidence scares HR much more. Jason finished the message with one sentence. I believe leadership may have received inaccurate information regarding project ownership. Cold, professional, devastating. Then he hit send directly to HR, compliance leadership, and one senior executive from the meeting. Afterward, pure panic. Absolute panic. Jason barely slept that night. Every notification sound made his stomach twist. He genuinely believed Richard might retaliate immediately. And technically, Richard tried. The next morning, Jason arrived at work and noticed something strange instantly. Coworkers avoided eye contact, tension everywhere. Then Richard suddenly appeared beside Jason's desk, smiling tightly. Quick chat, my office. Yeah. Never good. Jason followed him inside. Richard closed the door slowly, still smiling, but his eyes looked furious. And then this man actually tried gaslighting Jason directly. I heard you've been confused about yesterday's presentation. Confused, Jason said, hearing that almost made him laugh. Richard continued calmly. You need to understand leadership presentations represent department achievements. Number, individual ownership. Corporate manipulation language is honestly an art form. Richard basically stole months of labor publicly, then framed Jason as immature for noticing. But here is the problem. Richard still thought this situation remained private. He had absolutely no idea HR already opened a formal investigation less than an hour earlier. And once IT became involved, everything changed fast. Around noon, Jason received a calendar notification from HR mandatory meeting, third floor conference room, 2 o'clock, no explanation. And honestly, his stomach dropped immediately because corporate HR meetings almost never feel positive, especially after accusing your manager of misconduct. Meanwhile, Richard acted strangely relaxed again. Too relaxed. He even stopped by Jason's desk smiling. Don't stress yourself out over misunderstandings. This man really committed fully to the manipulation narrative. Jason nodded quietly outwardly. But inside, pure anxiety. At exactly 2 o'clock, Jason entered the conference room. 3 people already waited inside. An HR director, a compliance officer, and someone from Corporate 1 Tiseku. Ritti, that last person surprised him immediately. IT security usually meant serious investigations. Very serious. The HR director invited Jason to sit down calmly. Then she said something that changed the entire atmosphere instantly. We need clarification regarding ownership and access history connected to the analytics project, Access History. Jason realized right away what happened. They were checking digital records. And honestly, digital records do not care about office politics. The IT specialist opened a laptop, then started displaying timestamps across the conference screen, system logins, file creation histories, code repositories, edit records. Everything, and oh my god. Richard looked terrible immediately once they called him into the room afterward. Actually, terrible. Because unlike verbal arguments, technical evidence feels brutal, objective, cold, impossible to charm away. The IT specialist calmly explained that nearly every major development file originated from Jason's credentials, not Richard's. Hundreds of documented edits, weekend logins, remote access sessions, detailed coding histories. Meanwhile, Richard's account activity Mostal. Why involved opening presentation copies shortly before leadership meetings? That was bad already. Really bad. But then the IT guy casually mentioned something even worse. North Star conference rooms automatically archived internal meeting recordings for compliance purposes. And apparently, one specific recording raised concerns. The screen switched. Video playback started. Jason immediately recognized the footage. It was a project review meeting from 6 weeks earlier. Richard sat beside him asking basic questions repeatedly. Basic questions, like genuinely beginner-level understanding. At one point, Richard literally asked Jason how automated triggers connected to reporting queues. Executives inside the HR room watched silently, and the entire time Jason calmly explained everything like a teacher helping somebody completely unfamiliar with the system. Richard looked physically sick watching the footage, because there it was, recorded proof. The so-called project creator needing tutorials from the actual creator. Then came the final nuclear strike. The IT specialist opened email metadata. Apparently, Richard forwarded Jason's original architecture proposal to executives weeks earlier, after removing Jason's name from the document header. Yeah, that crossed from unethical into deliberate fraud territory instantly. The compliance officer leaned back slowly, and for the first time, Richard stopped talking completely. No buzzwords, no confidence, nothing, just silence. Then HR asked one devastating question. Richard, would you like to explain why you presented this project as your independent work? And according to Jason, Richard finally cracked. Richard started sweating almost immediately. Not subtle sweating either, actual panic sweating. His confident manager personality completely disappeared inside that conference room. And honestly, Jason said that was the strangest part. Watching somebody powerful suddenly become small. Richard tried talking at first, fast, rambling excuses everywhere. This was a collaborative department initiative. I never intended to misrepresent contributions. There may have been communication misunderstandings. Corporate language 4, I got caught. The HR director stayed completely expressionless, honestly terrifying behavior. Meanwhile, the IT specialist continued opening records circa. Omli. More timestamps, more meeting footage. Every new file made Richard look worse. Then they uncovered something unbelievable. Apparently, Richard deleted several internal chat messages the morning after the executive presentation. Only problem, corporate servers archived everything automatically, and those deleted messages absolutely buried him. One message sent to another manager read, "Need to keep Jason quiet until promotion announcement."
Yeah.
Game over. The entire room went silent after that. Even Jason felt shocked, because up until then, maybe Richard could argue ego or confusion. But that message proved intent clearly. Planned deception, calculated deception. Richard realized it too. You could apparently see the exact second Hope left his body. Then came the question that destroyed him completely. The compliance officer leaned forward slowly. Were you planning to permanently claim ownership of the analytics system? Richard opened his mouth. Nothing came out, and honestly, silence answered perfectly. The HR director finally closed her folder, then calmly informed Richard he was being placed under immediate administrative suspension pending termination review. Suspension. Inside corporate language, that usually means start packing mentally. Richard started panicking instantly afterward. He turned directly toward Jason. Actually, toward Jason. You know how hard management pressure is. Excuse me? This man really attempted emotional guilt after months stealing someone else's work. Jason later admitted that moment erased any remaining sympathy completely. Richard kept spiraling. I was trying to help the department. I deserved recognition too. Again, notice the wording. Not one real apology. Not one. Everything centered around what Richard wanted. Then security arrived. Actual building security. And honestly, that part felt cinematic. Two guards standing quietly outside the conference room waiting for HR instructions. Richard looked humiliated immediately, especially because employees outside started noticing something was happening. Office gossip spreads faster than viruses. Within minutes, people whispered everywhere. Richard eventually grabbed his laptop shakily, then left the room beside security without saying another word. And Jason? Jason just sat there, re-emotionally exhausted, not triumphant yet, just drained, because people underestimate how stressful conflict becomes inside workplaces, especially against authority figures. Then the vice president joined through video call unexpectedly, same executive from the original presentation. And according to Jason, the man looked furious, not at Jason, at the situation, because executives hate public embarrassment, especially when promotions become connected to misconduct investigations. The vice president apologized directly to Jason, directly, then said something Jason never expected hearing. We owe you recognition for extraordinary work. And honestly, after months of being erased, those words hit hard. Jason thought things might calm down after Richard's suspension. Absolutely not. The next 48 hours felt like corporate wildfire. Everybody knew something happened. Nobody knew exact details, which made gossip even worse. Co-workers suddenly treated Jason completely differently. People who barely acknowledged him before now stopped by his desk constantly. Some offered support quietly. Others wanted drama details immediately. One guy literally whispered, Brother, did HR really walk Richard out? Office people are unbelievable, honestly. Meanwhile, executives launched a formal internal review of the analytics project rollout, and once senior leadership actually examined Jason's work properly, everything escalated fast. Because the system performed even better than originally reported, departments saved hundreds of labor hours weekly, error rates dropped massively, executives became obsessed overnight. Suddenly, Jason got invited into meetings Richard previously blocked him from entirely. Direct executive meetings. No middle manager filtering. No credit stealing. Just Jason explaining his own work personally. And honestly, people finally understood immediately who built the project. Because unlike Richard, Jason actually knew every detail deeply. Then came another huge twist. One senior analyst from finance reached out privately. Apparently, Richard tried claiming credit for smaller projects before too. Nothing this massive, but enough to create a pattern. And once HR started reviewing previous complaints, things became catastrophic for Richard professionally. Former employees submitted statements. Old email trails resurfaced. Even mispromotion disputes reopened internally. This man apparently spent years attaching himself to successful employees like a corporate parasite. Exactly what co-workers secretly joked about earlier, only now leadership saw it too. Then Friday morning arrived, and Jason got another calendar invite, executive boardroom, 9 a.m., mandatory attendance. Now, honestly, Jason thought he might still get fired somehow. Corporate environments can be unpredictable like that. Instead, he walked into the largest conference room in the building and found 8 senior executives waiting, including the vice president. The atmosphere felt serious immediately. Then the VP stood up. Jason, we reviewed the investigation findings thoroughly. Jason said his heart pounded so hard he barely heard the next few seconds. Because this moment could change everything, the VP continued calmly. Your work transformed operational performance across multiple departments. Another executive nodded. And frankly, we failed to recognize your contribution appropriately. That line mattered more than people realize. Public acknowledgement inside corporate structures changes everything politically. Then the VP smiled slightly. We'd like to formally offer you the senior operations strategy position effective immediately. Jason genuinely thought he misheard him. Senior operations strategy. That was Richard's upcoming promotion path. The exact position Richard tried stealing through Jason's project. Except now, Jason was getting it instead. Complete reversal. And honestly, Jason almost laughed from shock. The salary increase alone changed his life instantly. Huge raise, bonus package, leadership authority, everything. Then the VP added one final detail. Also, Richard's employment with North Star has been terminated effective today. Terminated, publicly, officially. And according to Jason, the room felt strangely quiet afterward, because everybody understood the irony perfectly. Richard tried stealing a promotion through deception. Instead, he lost everything to the very evidence he ignored. Jason walked out of that executive meeting completely numb. Not emotional numb either. More like reality doesn't feel real numb. Because 6 days earlier, he genuinely believed his career might collapse. Now suddenly, he had the promotion instead. Life changes fast sometimes, especially when arrogant people underestimate evidence. The company announced leadership restructuring later that afternoon. And honestly, the office atmosphere became pure chaos immediately. People crowded around coffee stations whispering nonstop. Some employees looked shocked. Others looked deeply satisfied, especially workers who suffered under Richard previously. One woman from operations literally muttered, "Finally, that says everything honestly." Toxic managers always think nobody notices. CES their behavior. Meanwhile, entire departments quietly celebrate when they disappear. Jason officially moved into a corner office the following week. Nothing massive, but compared to his old cubicle, felt luxurious. Actual windows, privacy, a door that closed, corporate success starter pack. But here's the interesting part. Jason said the promotion itself mattered less than respect finally changing. Executives listened differently now. Co-workers treated him differently. Even meetings felt different. Because once leadership publicly validates someone, workplace dynamics shift overnight. Still unfair, honestly. People should receive respect before titles. But corporate reality rarely works that way. Then came the moment that truly completed the karma. About 2 weeks later, Jason learned Richard appealed the termination decision internally. Of course he did. Apparently, Richard claimed workplace pressure caused poor judgment. Again, no accountability, just excuses. But HR shut it down quickly, especially after discovering Richard violated document integrity policies directly, meaning his actions technically risked legal liability for the company itself. Huge mistake. North Star cared less about morality and more about liability exposure honestly. That is corporate truth. Then something even funnier happened. The executive presentation where Richard stole credit. Yeah. That meeting recording circulated quietly among senior leadership afterward as an internal training example.
I swear.
An actual cautionary example. Basically, corporate anti theft education. Imagine becoming a mandatory ethics lesson inside your own company. Brutal. Meanwhile, Jason slowly adjusted to leadership responsibilities. And honestly, he handled it completely differently from Richard. He credited team members publicly, shared recognition constantly, even brought donuts during stressful rollout weeks. Tiny gestures matter in workplaces. People remember respect forever. Then one evening after work, Jason received a message from a former coworker. Apparently, Richard started posting motivational career advice on LinkedIn. Seriously, things like leadership means empowering innovation. Sir, you literally stole innovation on camera. The internet remains undefeated, honestly. Jason ignored it mostly, because by then he finally understood something important. Success feels better when you stop needing revenge actively. The truth already handled everything. Richard destroyed himself. Jason simply documented reality carefully enough for others to see it too. And honestly, that is usually how the best workplace revenge works. Not screaming, not sabotage, just evidence, cold evidence, because cameras remember. emails remember, and eventually HR remembers too. Now, personally, I love stories like this, not because workplace betrayal is entertaining. Okay, maybe a little, but mostly because this situation exposes something important about corporate culture. A lot of toxic managers survive because employees assume nobody powerful will ever listen. And honestly, sometimes that is true, but documentation changes everything, especially digital documentation. Now, the internet absolutely exploded over Jason's story, and the comments, oh, they were ruthless. Top comment said, Richard forgot the first rule of office theft: never steal from the IT generation. Honestly, perfect. Because people who grew up online leave evidence everywhere automatically. Another commenter wrote, T. The moment he removed Jason's name from documents, he stopped being shady and became stupid. Exactly. Corporate arrogance makes people sloppy eventually, especially when they think authority protects them permanently. Then somebody shared a story that honestly made my jaw drop. My old boss stole my presentation once. Unfortunately for him, he forgot I designed the slides with hidden metadata signatures. Oh my god, that is villain level preparation. Respectfully terrifying. Another comment hit really hard though. This person wrote, The saddest part is Jason almost stayed silent. Imagine how many employees never speak up and just quit quietly. And honestly, that comment stayed with me longest. Because workplace manipulation destroys confidence slowly. People start doubting themselves constantly, especially under managers who rewrite reality professionally. Then one former HR worker commented something extremely interesting. They said, You would be shocked how often executives uncover misconduct accidentally through IT logs. Absolutely believable. Computers track everything: login histories, document edits, message timestamps. People think deleting G files erases actions forever. Meanwhile, servers remember every bad decision beautifully. Then came my favorite comment easily. This person wrote, Richard lost a promotion, his job, and his reputation because he got greedy 5 minutes before success. That right there is the entire tragedy: greed. If Richard simply shared credit properly, he probably still keeps his career. Maybe even gets promoted alongside Jason eventually. Instead, he wanted everything. And people who want everything usually lose everything. Every single time. Now, after all that corporate chaos, we definitely need something lighter. Because office betrayal stories raise blood pressure honestly. So let's finish this video with a petty revenge story that proves one beautiful truth. Never humiliate quiet employees publicly, especially not creative ones, because sometimes the calmest people plan the funniest revenge imaginable. And trust me, this next story is absolutely legendary. It starts with a coffee shop manager named Linda, and by the end of it, an entire customer loyalty program accidentally turned against her perfectly. So this next story comes from a woman named Chloe. And honestly, I already knew Linda would become a problem immediately, because Chloe described her using one sentence that tells you everything. She treated minimum wage workers like malfunctioning robots. Yeah, we all know somebody exactly like that. Chloe worked part-time at a trendy coffee shop in London during university. Small place, expensive drinks, customers pretending oat milk choices were personality traits. Again, you know the type. Now most coworkers were great, exhausted, underpaid, funny. Typical service industry survival squad. But the manager? Linda was unbearable. She obsessed over tiny mistakes constantly. Wrong lid placement? Lecture. Coffee foam slightly uneven? Lecture. One customer waiting an extra minute. Public humiliation speech? And Linda always corrected employees loudly in front of customers. That part mattered, because embarrassment was her favorite management technique, especially toward quieter workers like Chloe. Now Chloe actually worked extremely hard, covered shifts constantly, never arrived late, handled difficult customers calmly. But Linda still targeted her repeatedly, probably because Chloe never argued back. Toxic management. ERS love easy targets. Then came the incident that changed everything. Saturday morning rush. Absolute chaos. Orders everywhere. Milk steaming nonstop. People lined halfway outside the shop. And right in the middle of all that madness, Linda suddenly started screaming across the counter. Chloe! Did you seriously mess up table 7 again? Entire cafe went quiet. Customers stared immediately. Chloe checked the order, confused. Nothing was wrong. Literally nothing. The drinks matched perfectly. but Linda kept going anyway, loudly. You need to start using your brain before somebody competent replaces you.
Yeah.
In front of customers, in front of coworkers, over absolutely nothing, Chloe said, her face burned instantly. That kind of humiliation sticks with people, especially when you already feel small financially. Then Linda made one final mistake. She grabbed the loyalty stamp card Chloe kept beside the register, rolled her eyes dramatically. At this rate, maybe you should stick to collecting coffee stamps instead of couriers. Customers actually looked uncomfortable hearing that, because everybody recognized bullying when they saw it. Chloe stayed silent outwardly, but internally, done, completely done. And honestly, quiet people deciding they are finished tolerating disrespect is dangerous, because they stop reacting emotionally. They start planning. Now, here is the important detail. Chloe handled most customer loyalty accounts digitally, meaning she controlled reward setups, promotional scheduling, and customer email campaigns. Nothing illegal, obviously, but enough access to create extremely creative inconvenience. And over the next week, Chloe noticed something hilarious accidentally. Linda obsessively monitored customer review scores online. Obsessively, every positive review became a screenshot. Every criticism triggered panic, which meant Chloe suddenly understood the perfect revenge immediately. Not sabotage, not arguments, public embarrassment. The exact thing Linda loved doing to employees. Only this time, thousands of customers would participate accidentally. Now, before anybody panics, Chloe did not hack anything, did not steal money, did not destroy systems. This revenge stayed perfectly harmless, which honestly makes it even funnier. So every month, the coffee shop launched tea, any promotional campaigns through the loyalty app, stuff like buy 2 drinks, get one free, double stamps every Friday, basic coffee marketing nonsense. And Chloe handled scheduling for most of it because Linda hated learning software tools. Important detail, very important. Now, Linda also had one extremely annoying habit. She constantly bragged publicly about maintaining elite customer satisfaction standards. Actual words, elite customer satisfaction standards. Meanwhile, employees cried in storage rooms twice weekly. The irony was unbelievable, so Chloe started planning carefully, very carefully. First, she reviewed customer feedback patterns from previous months. Turns out people loved one specific thing most: free customization offers, extra syrups, alternative milk upgrades, stuff like that. Simple, cheap, popular. Then Chloe scheduled a completely legitimate promotional event for the upcoming weekend. Everything approved properly, everything within company policy. Only one tiny detail changed. The promotion automatically attached Linda's full manager name directly beneath every customer notification, meaning thousands of app users would see special weekend experience personally guaranteed by manager Linda Harper. Still harmless, still professional. But Chloe also activated the optional customer feedback response feature, and Linda had absolutely no idea that feature existed. Basically, after purchase, customers automatically received prompts asking whether manager Linda Harper delivered an excellent experience. Now, under normal circumstances, no big deal. Except this promotion exploded unexpectedly. Completely exploded. The app notification went viral locally. People flooded the cafe all weekend for discounted custom drinks. Lines stretched outside constantly. Employees barely survived. And guess who had to personally manage the chaos publicly? Linda. Now remember, Linda treated staff terribly under pressure. Always. So by Saturday afternoon, exhausted customers started witnessing her real personality live, snapping at workers, rolling her eyes, complaining loudly. At one point, she apparently argued with an elderly customer over whipped cream charges. Big mistake, because every single frustrated customer immediately received automated feedback requests directly connected to Linda's name A afterward, and people responded enthusiastically. Very enthusiastically. Negative reviews poured in everywhere: Google, AP feedback, corporate surveys, even social media. Not because Chloe lied, because Linda finally exposed herself publicly without employees shielding her behavior anymore. By Monday morning, regional management noticed immediately. Customer satisfaction scores absolutely collapsed. And the funniest part, Linda had no clue why her own name suddenly appeared everywhere connected to complaints. She panicked completely, started blaming staff, started blaming customers, started blaming technical issues. Meanwhile, corporate kept forwarding complaint screenshots asking for explanations. And Chloe stayed perfectly calm making lattes quietly because technically she did nothing wrong. Everything functioned exactly as designed. Linda simply could not survive public scrutiny once customers experienced her behavior directly. And honestly, that is beautiful petty revenge. Things got dramatically worse for Linda after that weekend. Because once corporate attention lands on bad managers, everything gets examined closely. Every complaint, every schedule, every staff turnover report. And apparently, Linda's location had unusually high employee resignation rates for months. Huge red flag. Now, before this, Linda always blamed lazy young workers, classic management excuse. But suddenly, corporate started interviewing employees directly, privately, without Linda controlling conversations. Massive mistake for her, because coworkers finally started talking honestly about public humiliation, aggressive behavior, unpaid extra tasks. Even customers witnessed some incidents directly, and honestly, the stories sounded awful. One employee admitted she cried in the bathroom regularly before shifts. Another said Linda mocked his stutter during rush hour once. Yeah. Meanwhile, Linda became increasingly paranoid. She kept demanding to know who turned corporate against her, which honestly made her look even guiltier. At one point, she apparently accused Chloe publicly during closing shift. You've been manipulating things behind my back. Chloe calmly asked one question. Manipulating what exactly? And apparently Linda had no answer, because technically, nothing false happened. Customer, as simply described real experiences honestly. That is the funniest part. Then corporate scheduled a surprise site review Thursday morning. Everybody knew immediately this was serious. Regional supervisors never visit unexpectedly unless disaster already exists. Linda arrived wearing full fake professionalism mode, extra makeup, forced smiling, weird motivational energy. Absolutely terrifying behavior, honestly. But stress cracks performative people quickly, especially under observation. By lunchtime, Linda already snapped at two employees in front of supervisors accidentally. One regional manager literally raised an eyebrow mid conversation. Done. Finished. Then came the final humiliation. Corporate reviewed customer feedback publicly during the management meeting upstairs. And because Chloe linked the promotion directly to Linda's manager profile, every complaint appeared under her name specifically. Pages of them. Pages. One comment apparently read, Manager Linda made the cafe feel emotionally hostile. Emotionally hostile, brutal. Another said, Employees looked scared every time she walked near them. Honestly, even worse, you cannot spin feedback like key that easily. Then regional leadership asked employees privately whether they felt respected at work. And according to Chloe, nobody defended Linda. Not one person. That silence says everything. 2 days later, corporate transferred Linda out of the location permanently. Officially, it was management restructuring. Sure, everybody knew the truth though. And honestly, the cafe atmosphere improved instantly afterward. Employees laughed again. People stayed longer after shifts. Even customer reviews improved dramatically within weeks. Turns out kindness affects business outcomes. Shocking discovery, apparently. Then the funniest thing happened. Corporate actually praised Chloe later for excellent customer engagement optimization during the promotional campaign. I swear, meaning the exact system Linda mocked indirectly exposed her behavior completely. And honestly, that feels poetically perfect, because people who humiliate others publicly always forget one important thing. Eventually, audiences start judging them too. Honestly, that coffee shop revenge healed something inside me spiritually, because nothing irritates me more than managers humiliating employees. Yes, publicly just to feel powerful, especially minimum wage workers. People already survive enough stress financially. They do not need emotional bullying added on top. Now the internet absolutely loved Chloe's story too, and some comments were hilarious. Top comment said, Linda accidentally created her own Yelp horror documentary. Honestly, accurate. Another person wrote, the best revenge is giving awful people a microphone and letting them expose themselves naturally. Exactly. Chloe did not invent fake complaints, did not sabotage products. She simply removed the protective layer hiding Linda from consequences. And once customers experienced her behavior directly, everything collapsed naturally. Then somebody shared a story that genuinely shocked me. My manager used to scream at us daily until corporate installed audio monitoring for customer service quality. Suddenly, he became the nicest man alive. Funny how accountability transforms personalities instantly. Another comment hit really hard though. This person wrote, "People quit bad managers more often than bad jobs." Completely true. A decent manager can make exhausting work survivable. A toxic manager can destroy dream jobs completely. Then came my favorite comment easily. Someone wrote, "Linda spent years treating workers like disposable robots, then got defeated by an automated feedback system. Beautiful irony. Poetry honestly. Absolute poetry. And honestly, that is the deeper pattern connecting all today's stories. Daniel, Richard, Linda, different situations. Same mindset. Control without accountability. That is what destroys people eventually. Because manipulative individuals always assume they manage the narrative permanently until evidence appears, or witnesses speak, or systems track behavior quietly. Then suddenly, the illusion collapses overnight. And honestly, that is why documentation matters so much. Keep receipts, keep screenshots, keep timelines. Not because revenge should control your life, but because truth becomes stronger when supported by proof, especially against confident liars. Now, if there is one thing I want everybody watching to remember, it is this: trust patterns, not speeches. Manipulative people talk beautifully sometimes, but behavior always leaks eventually. Always. Anyway, guys, that officially wraps Torah. Wise Chaos Collection, Corporate Theft, Secret Families, Coffee Shop Karma. Honestly, this video had everything. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And seriously, if you made it this far, you are the exact type of person these stories were made for. Hit that subscribe button, save this video for later, and tell me in the comments which person was worse, Daniel, Richard, or Linda personally. I still think secret second families win the nightmare competition. But honestly, Richard came dangerously close. Take care of yourselves, trust your instincts, and I will see you guys in the next one.